So if you've noticed on the SPD-SX, the SPD-SX Pro, and just generally any Roland equipment, you will have seen that each kit has a number. Now obviously this is really helpful for going through and choosing the kit, but it turns out that that number is also MIDI-able and is sent in and out of MIDI. So it basically means that if you're running backing tracks on any software that outputs MIDI, whether that be QLab, Logic, Ableton, Pro Tools, any of them, then that means that when you get to song 1, you can automatically make the SPD-SX change to a brand new sample patch. So for this video, what I'm using is the Roland SPD-SX. It's not the Pro, but I'm 90% sure you can still do this on the Pro. And I'm also pretty sure you can do this on the TM2 and loads of different other stuff. But anyway, for this video, it's for the SPD-SX, and then I'm just going USB into my Mac for the MIDI, and then I'll be sending MIDI through Ableton back to the SPD-SX. But you don't need to use Ableton, you can use whichever software you're using. This does work in Logic, in Pro Tools. All of the software that sends out MIDI, this will work. I'm just using Ableton because it's the one I know. So the first thing you'll want to do is just prep the SPD-SX. So that's making sure that you've got the MIDI drivers on your laptop for the SX. To get those drivers, it's so easy. All you want to do is type into Google SPD-SX drivers. The first thing that comes up is the Roland support page. Click on that, it'll load forever, and then it'll take you to this page. You just want to scroll down to whichever operating system you're using. So for me, I'm using Mac, but if you're on a Windows, then pretty much this first driver here for Windows is for you. For Mac, we scroll down a little bit more until we get pretty much this one here, which is Sonoma. So if you're running the most up-to-date Mac as of this video, then Sonoma is the one for you. If you're running anything below that, then it's the driver just below. Click through, download it, install it. It's super quick. You will need to restart your laptop, so just be prepared for that. But then that's it. Then it just sits in the background and you're good to go. The next thing we just want to prep is actually on the SPD-SX itself. So all you need to do is go into Menu, down to Setup, all the way down to Option, and then that USB mode at the bottom, we want to change that from Wave Manager to Audio/MIDI using the plus and minus buttons. Then we can just hit Kit, and the SPD-SX is now ready. You just plug in a USB cable from the back of the SPD-SX into your laptop, and you're good. And that's pretty much all the prep we need to do. The only next thing is prepping the software that you're using. Like I said, I'm using Ableton, but you don't need to. All I'm gonna do on Ableton now is just make sure that it's seeing the SPD-SX. So to do that, I'm gonna go to Live, into Settings, into Link Tempo MIDI, and then here you can see all of my MIDI devices, and I have quite a few now. But you want to search for SPD-SX and then tick the track and remote on both, just to be safe. You probably don't need to, but because we're now sending MIDI back and forth, it's nice to have both. There is also the SPD-SX MIDI that I have on mine. If I'm totally honest, I don't really know the difference between the two. I probably should, so you can just stick those anyway. If anyone does know what the difference between just the SPD-SX and the SPD-SX MIDI is, feel free to comment it down below, because I just don't know. If you're using the MIDI outputs out of the back of this with the 5-pin MIDI cable, then you'll need to select the interface that it's going into, because that's what will be transferring the MIDI, basically. So now we've got the MIDI drivers on the SPD-SX, we've got the computer reading the SPD-SX and sending it through USB. Now we just want to make sure that when we send the program number into the SPD-SX, that it reads it and changes the kit. It's so easy to do, it's literally one setting. All you need to do is go into Menu, down to Setup again, but this time we're going up to MIDI, and here we have loads of settings and we can change a bunch of stuff and it gets exciting. So the one we're looking for is actually on the control page, so you can just hit the middle button under the screen, and it's the top setting there, the PC TX/RX SW, which is such a catchy name, but you just want to turn that on. If you want to copy the rest of my settings here, you can, but the rest of those settings aren't needed for what we're doing in this video. Once you've done that, just hit the kit button and we're done. Now's the fun bit of actually getting our software to send the SPD-SX the number to change to the kit. As you can see, I'm on kit 36, Dino_1, which is my go-to like mess around kit. This is where I mess around with everything and the settings are never the same, and it's a wonderful thing. But the number at the top left is what we want. So let's say in Ableton, I'm going to be using Session View for this just because it's the easiest to see. So let's say we had 3 tracks and each of those tracks is going to change the sample bank on the SPD-SX to a different one. It's super easy. So all we want to do is insert a MIDI track, and this is the same in Arrangement View, exactly the same process. Then let's say this top one is track 1 and I've already got all my backing tracks and things like that done and in there. I'm just going to double click into this space here, which brings up the MIDI map. What it's called. And then what I want to do on the left hand side here is click into this tab, and what we're looking for is program at the bottom. Click in that, and I'm going to change it to, let's say, 16 because let's say that's the kit that I want, which is why this is important that you make a note of all of the kits you want to change to, because that's the number. So this is now going to change the sample bank on the SPD-SX to bank number 16 as if it's a kit chain, for example. So that's song number 1. Let's say song number 2, I want to change this back up to 36, which is what we're on right now, so 36. And then for the third song, let's just go program 90, just because I'm pretty sure it's a blank kit, but we're about to find out. So they're all the MIDI program changes, and that's what we're looking for, is the program change. Now you noticed I didn't put in a MIDI note on the actual keyboard itself, because we don't need to, because we're not sending a note, we're sending the program change. Now the last thing we want to do is just to tell this MIDI channel to send to the SPD-SX. So the output out here, I'm going to send to the SPD-SX, and I'm going to change the channel to channel 10. And that's because by default, I think pretty much all Roland sample pads, including the SX, the Pro, TM2, that sort of stuff, they're all on the global channel 10. You can change that in the settings, but I don't need to for this, so I'm going to keep it on 10. But it just means that in Ableton, when we're sending out MIDI, we need to make sure that's on channel 10. You can risk it and send this out on all channels, but then you run the risk of triggering a different MIDI instrument if you've got lots of MIDI things in here. So just be aware of that. So the top track is track 16, I believe is what I put it at. So if I hit play, it should now change. There you go. To Ableton 16. Track 2 is, was it 36? Yeah, easy. Nice, number 36. And then 3 was 90, I think I put it as. Yeah, new kit, I was right. And there you go. It's as easy as that. And now you can automate the changes of your sample banks on the SPD-SX. And it's just one of those little automation things that I absolutely love, especially if you're running a full show with loads of different backing tracks. And yeah, it's one of those really, really easy things. So with that, I hope you enjoy automatically changing your sample packs on the SPD-SX.